Hi folks, it's time once again for me to pick my reads for next month. As usual, I should be using the bingo balls of fate to decide which shelf I'm going to select books from, and then having narrowed it down to a choice of 6, I'm going to use the decision dice of destiny to decide which book from those 6 I'm going to read. So without further ado, let's see what the fates have in store for me next month. Shelf 13. Shelf 13 spans these 2 bookcases. And the lighting on this side isn't brilliant, but I'll improve that when we get there. So there's actually a lot of delights on these 2 shelves. So let's see, starting at the brighter end, we've got an Ursula K I want to read, Always Coming Home. So that's 1. What about Barry Maltzberg? I'm tempted by the Stanislav Lem, mainly because of the cover, but Solaris has rather put me off. But The Falling Astronauts here is interesting. Not an easy read by all accounts. I think that's probably the lot on this side of the shelf. Let's have a look on the other one. Right, hopefully that's a little bit brighter. So this is all M's and N's. We've got Rhonda McIntyre at the left, through Elizabeth Moon, a bunch of Moorcocks, and then Chris Moriarty I'm intrigued by. There's a good few actually. I could almost throw a dart at this shelf and be happy. Let's see. I'm going to pick Starfarers, which is the first of a set of 4 by Rhonda McIntyre. I could read the third of the Vater's War. Is that 3? Book 3, yeah. I've read the first 2. And then let's see. If I'm honest, I don't find the Moorcocks massively appealing at the moment. But we've got Spin State. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 more. I'm probably going to go with Distance Haze just because it's on the Broderick and DeFilippo lists. That's 6. So let's see what the Decision Dice of Destiny have in store for us for shelf 13. Decision Dice of Destiny for shelf 13. Number 5, which means that it's not Ursula or Barry or Vonda, which I'm a little bit sad about, or Elizabeth or Jamil, but it is Chris Moriarty, Spin State. So that's book number 1 for October's reading. Okay, so I don't know how well you can see this. It's right at the bottom, in the very last shelf in my library, in the way that I've got it organised at least. Shelf 57. So there's actually not a huge amount of things here that I haven't already read many times in some cases. But let's see. So what about the Terraformers? That's 1. And then Peter Crowther collection. I could read some of that. What about Exordia and Delta V? So that's 4 quite quickly. Okay, so it's not as dire as I thought it might be. Kim Stanley Robinson, the ones that are there, I've read the Mars trilogy, I don't know how many times, so I probably doesn't need another reread, but I wouldn't mind reading Aurora again. So that would be 5. And then 6, slightly intimidated by the girth of this, is actually the longest fiction book, at least in my collection. It's Limit by whatever his name is, Frank Schatzing. All right, so that's 6. Let's see what the dice have to say for shelf 57. Dice of Destiny for shelf 57. Number 4. All right, so let's see. It's not Terraformers or Peter Crowther or Exordia or Aurora or, I'm a little bit thankful to say, Limit. But it is Delta V by Daniel Suarez, which is apparently a cracking read. Exciting. Shelf 23. So this is shelf 23. So there's some Michael Swanwick at the end there. Let's go with Stations of the Tide. What about Venus Plus X? I have a feeling that's on one of the lists, probably Pringle's list. A. Van Vogt, and I didn't particularly enjoy Slan, so I need a couple more reference points before deciding what to pick. Although they do have a habit of putting really cool artwork on their Van Vogt books. Is there one that I can bring myself to try? About Earth's Last Fortress, let's give that a bash. So that's 3. Quite a bit of Jack Vance here as well. Imperio, Star King, actually I'd like to give that a try. I don't have, if I had it I would absolutely pick it. I don't have Flip, Dying Earth. I've got a couple of the sequels but not the first one. What about Trollian Alastor? So is that, how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's do that. So number 1 will be Stations of the Tide, then it's Theodore, then Van Vogt, and then the 3 advances. Let's see what the Dice of Destiny have in store for shelf 23. Number 6, which means that it is not Michael Swanwick or Theodore Sturgeon or A. Van Vogt, nor is it Star King or Imperio, but it is Trollian Alastor, 2262. Cool. Shelf 46. So this is shelf 46, which has a bunch of different things on it actually, many of which are an attractive proposition, including some good old science fiction masterworks. So any of these 3, right? Ice, Remainder and the Anomaly, it meant to be very good. The Gone Away World by Nick Harkaway, also meant to be very good, although challenging by all accounts. So that's 4 right there. And then I think I'm going to go with these 2 guys here, Zoo City and The Birth of the People's Republic of Antarctica. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Happy days, that was easy. Plenty more I could have chosen on this shelf, I think. Dice of Destiny for shelf 46. Number 5. So it is not The Gone Away World or Ice or Remainder or The Anomaly or People's Republic of Antarctica. Antarctic People's Republic. It is Zoo City by Lauren Bucas. Shelf 8. This is shelf 8. It's right on the floor, so I'm kneeling down at an awkward angle. So there's a bunch of CJ Cherry on this side, and of those I think probably Sci-Fi is the one I'd like to read, although probably not all of it. I think there are 3 books in one there. This trilogy sounds good, from Andrew Bannister. Let's see what else is there. I'm tempted by the Harry Turtledoves, but I'm not sure I want to take on a 4-book series at the moment. Cave of Stars I'd really like to read, and Children of the Sky I've heard is a slightly disappointing sequel to Far Upon the Deep. Living Next Door to God of Love is a sort of loose sequel to Natural History, or at least it's set in the same world. What about Harm's Way by Colin Greenland? Okay, let's see what the dice have to say for shelf 8. Number 4. So it's not Sci-Fi, and it's not Andrew Bannister or Colin Greenland or Children of the Sky or Cave of Stars, but it is Living Next Door to the God of Love by Justina Robson. Shelf 53. So, a bit of Piers Brown action. And then a lot of women's press science fiction books, which I think I'm right to say, none of which I've read. So let's see what we can do here. Despite all of the riches at this end that I really should read, I'm going to pick Golden Sun, which I think is the second of the Red Rising books. The Ministry of Time and The Bone Ships would be good. Ooh. Cavalier and Clay. It's been highly recommended to me. I suppose the one that I really ought to read is The Female Man by Joanna Russ. So is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, it's not. What about Postman? That's a bit of a post-apocalyptic fun. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's see what the dice have to say for shelf 53. Number 3. So it is not Golden Sun or Ministry of Time or Cavalier and Clay or The Postman or, sorry Joanna, The Female Man, but it is R.J. Boker's The Bone Ships, which I've heard really good things about, but it is fantasy. So it's a bit of a departure, but you know, it doesn't do any harm to venture onto the other side from time to time. Shelf 27. So this is shelf 27, which I don't recall ever having come up before. So let's see, there's mostly novellas on this shelf, with a few exceptions towards the other end. So So I'm tempted by a bit of rhinoceros action. Sounds like good fun. And then let's go over to the other end. And then I'd like to read Mappamundi by, this shelf is really jam-packed. It's not going to come out. Mappamundi by Justina Robson. And then one of the Martin McGuinness's. I think Gathering Evidence would be good. How many is that? That's 3. Dark Shepherd, bit of space opera action. That's 4. And then I could probably pick 2 groups of 2, I think. There's a Paul de Filippo there. How about that? And we'll go with Paul de Filippo and whatever this one is, Jane Fenn. It's a Mars set one, so that we'll count that as one choice. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then one more lot of. What about an Adam Roberts double bill? So it's Jupiter Magnified and Park Polar. All right, so that'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, let's see what the Dice of Destiny have in store for shelf 27. Number 5. It is not Rhinoceros or Adam Roberts or these 2 guys or Dark Shepherd. It's a bit of a shame. It's not Mappamundi, but it is Gathering Evidence by Martin McGuinness. Shelf 50. Another one on the bottom shelf. It's not doing my knees any good. So this is nearly all Stephen Baxter with a bit of Richard Morgan at the end there. I have read quite a chunk of the Baxters before, so let's see what haven't I read. I haven't read Destroyer or Galaxius or The Massacre of Mankind. So that's 3 straight off the bat. I've read these guys and Voyage. I've actually read all of these as well. Creation Node I haven't read, so that's 4. What about, I think that's a standalone book, Black Man, so that'll be 5. Do I want to give Titan a reread? Yeah, I think I probably do. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Happy days. Let's see what the Dice of Destiny have to say for shelf 50. 5. So it is not World Engines or Galaxius or The Massacre of Mankind, which I think is a sequel to War of the Worlds. It's not Titan or Richard Morgan, but it is Creation Node, which is one of his more recent books, I think. My habit has been to let the bingo balls and the dice choose 8 books for me to read in the following month. And sometimes I don't finish them all, but usually I do. And then I get to pick 2 readers' picks, if you like, which I just choose from my science fiction library at large. And for this coming month, my 2 readers' picks are King of the Hill by Paul Macaulay, which is a short story collection from reasonably early in his career, I think. So I think this is from, yes, this is from 1991. And at the time this was published, there were only 2 other books that he'd written, 400 Billion Stars and Secret Harmonies. So quite a lot of the stories in here allegedly are set in that same universe. But some aren't. Most of these were published in Interzone magazine in the UK, and then about a third were published in Amazing in between the mid to late 80s and the very early 1990s. I haven't read any of Paul Macaulay's short fiction work, and now that I have a full collection of his work, both short and novel length, I really need to start reading a bit more of it. So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into those. And then I was brave enough to ask for an advanced reading copy of Slow Gods, which is the new book by Claire North, which comes out in November, I think it is. And I'm super keen to read this. I'm a big fan of Claire North's work, just based on the 2 or 3 of hers that I've read. And I'm super interested to know what she's going to do with a space opera. So this is out in November, which will be the sort of following month by the time I get to this. So I'll be talking a bit more about this on the channel nearer the time. Right then, in no particular order, the books that the Fates have chosen, among them are Delta V by Daniel Suarez, which I know a bit about. It's sort of hard SF adventure story. I think if I remember rightly, it features a billionaire somewhat in the mould of Elon Musk, I suppose. This one's called Nathan Joyce. It's a kind of billionaire that has a private island. And he's pushing to get out to the asteroids to mine them for riches and what have you. And I think there's at least one other book set in the same sort of world with some of the same characters. But anyway, it's meant to be a bit of a page turner, but with some good sort of orbital mechanics underpinning it. Let's do all the hardbacks first. Next is Justina Robson's Living Next Door to the God of Love, which is a sort of loose sequel to Natural History, a book which I read and enjoyed, I think, last year. So in this world, there are regular people like you and me, And then there are people that have been genetically engineered or born to like a recipe, and they can take, so they're human on an underlying level, but they can take various shapes and sizes and forms. And so there are flying people, there are smaller people, there are humans which are really starships or terraforming tractors or whatever. And so there's a huge array of beings in that world, and then this is set in that world. So this dates back 20 years to 2005. So I don't really know much about the story within, but based on my experience reading natural history and some of her short stories, I think I'm going to enjoy it. Next is Gathering Evidence by Martin McGuinness, who's the author of, amongst other things, In Ascension, which is a book that I very much enjoyed reading last year. It was one of my favourite books of the year. And this, I think, is set, amongst researchers in a sort of park, I don't know where, presumably in Africa, to observe one of the last troops of bonobo chimpanzees. And there's unusual behaviour and unexplained deaths amongst the chimps, and then a sudden event that changes everything. So, meant to be pretty good. Next is Creation Node by Stephen Baxter, which is a standalone novel, as far as I can tell, from a few years back, 2020 something, I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, 2023. So it's not his most recent novel. I think that was Fortress Soul, but it's probably the one before that. And apparently this is really good and tells the story of a research mission out in the deep solar system, and they spot something which they initially believed to be a ninth planet, so like another Pluto, if you like. And then they thought, okay, it's not a planet, it's a black hole, and then it turns out to be something entirely different, which turns out to be the most dramatic discovery in history, apparently. So Stephen Baxter doesn't really do small scale, so I'm expecting it to be epic. It's not a particularly huge book, so it shouldn't take too long to get through. And we've got a Cuckoo in the Nest, Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. I haven't read any of their work. I'm not sure if it's a he or she. I presume it's a guy, but I don't know. I haven't read any of their work. And this was recommended to me, and I ended up getting it for my birthday, I think. Apparently it's a brilliantly imagined saga of honour, glory and warfare. Oh, God, that's annoying. I suppose I should have anticipated that this would be the case. It's the first book of a trilogy. So if I enjoy this, I'm going to be forced to get the other two, aren't I? You know, I although I've focused on science fiction the last few years, I have dabbled in a bit of fantasy over my many years of reading, sometimes quite a lot of fantasy. So, I should enjoy that, I'm sure. And then back into the realm of science fiction, we've got Spin State, which is the first of, it's actually three. The second book is Spin Control, and then there was a gap of a number of years, and there's a third one, the name of which escapes me. But it really started as a two-book tale. And this is by Chris Moriarty, who is actually a woman. I think Chris is short for something, got Christine or Christina, I presume. It's a space opera. It's from the early 2000s, I think. And I know of it only because I featured it in one of my kind of decade science space opera videos. From 2003. Hard science fiction, space opera, can't go wrong. And then something a bit more vintage. It's really, I suppose, arguably the only vintage, but we're not counting 2003 as vintage yet, are we? I hope not. But this probably does count. I think this is from the 60s originally, possibly even before that. Let's have a look. Oh no, 1973. And this is a 1979 Mayflower edition. Trullian Alastor 2262. Remember this being recommended to me, but I really don't know much about it at all, or what kind of book it is. I guess I'll find out. And last on the list is one of the books on the Broderick and DeFilippo 101 best novels list, Zoo City by Lauren Bucas. I'm reliably informed that's how it's pronounced. She's South African originally, so it's Bucas. On the back here it says file under urban fantasy or gangster shaman, symbiotic familiars, teen star missing, and everything breaks. So I don't know. An unfamiliar land full of familiars, a broken city peopled with damaged wonders. If our words are bullets, Lauren Bucas is a marksman in a world of drunken machine gunners. So Zinzi has a sloth on her back, a dirty 419 scam habit, and a talent for finding lost things. But when a little old lady turns up dead and the cops confiscate her last paycheck, she's forced to take on her least favourite kind of job, missing person. So it's sounds like a private detective kind of thing. Don't quite know what science fiction about it, but there we are, Zoo City. So that's everything. So you can let me know if you've read any of those, and let me know what I'm in for. No spoilers, obviously. But as always, thank you for watching, and until next time. Goodbye for now.